Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today, we've got something really cool to talk about, especially for all the NASCAR 25 players out there who've been waiting for some solid improvements to come through. Yeah, I'm talking about the brand new Patch 8 update that just dropped. And it's actually got a few important tweaks that might change the way your races feel from here on out. So let's get into it, because there's a lot to unpack, and it's more than just a tiny patch. This update touches career mode, the drafting system, pit times, and honestly, it's one of those smaller updates that makes a surprisingly big difference once you start getting some laps in. First off, let's talk about that big issue that's been haunting career mode players, the crash at IRP, or Indianapolis Raceway Park. If you've been grinding your career and you happen to be running two series at the same time, there's a good chance you ran into that weird crash or freeze that completely stopped progress. It's been frustrating for a lot of people because you could be hours deep into your season, balancing multiple series, building momentum, and then boom, instant crash. Patch 8 finally fixes that problem, and I've got to say, that alone makes this update worth downloading. Now, you can actually progress smoothly without worrying about losing your progress or being forced to restart a career that took you hours to build up. What's interesting here is that it's not just a random fix. It tells us the devs are starting to listen to what the community's been reporting. That IRP crash wasn't some tiny niche issue. It hit a lot of dedicated players who play multiple series, and it basically made career mode feel broken for anyone ambitious enough to multitask. So yeah, this is a good sign. It feels like they're taking the time to iron out those deeply annoying bugs that aren't necessarily flashy, but ruin the experience if you run into them. It also means the devs are paying closer attention to how players actually use the game, not just how they test it internally. Now, the next thing that really caught my attention is the adjustment to the drafting sliders. This one is going to make a difference for almost everyone, because drafting is such a core part of how NASCAR 25 feels on the track. Before this patch, a lot of people were saying that the drafting effect just felt too weak or inconsistent, especially in the pack. You could tuck in behind someone on a long straight, and sometimes it felt like nothing was happening. You weren't getting that pull or that air advantage you'd expect. Patch 8 changes that. The sliders that control drafting strength now have a much stronger effect, meaning if you turn them up, you'll actually feel it. You'll notice that aerodynamic pull when you're right on someone's bumper, and when you slingshot past them, it feels more alive. What's cool about this is that it adds a bit of realism. NASCAR is all about air movement, positioning, and using the draft to gain those little advantages that turn into big moves on the straightaway. Before, it kind of felt like that part of the racing was toned down or muted. Now, with this update, you'll need to start thinking more strategically about how you use the draft. It's not just about following your car closely. It's about timing your moves, setting up passes, and anticipating how the air is going to affect your car once you pull out to make that overtake. If you're running with a steering wheel setup, you might notice the difference even more because you'll feel that tiny change in resistance when the air catches you just right. That's the kind of feedback that makes these updates worth paying attention to. I'd actually recommend hopping into a quick race or a test session before you jump back into career mode, just to mess around with those sliders and find a setting that feels right for you. Everyone's going to have a slightly different preference depending on how realistic or arcade-like they want the experience to feel. Personally, I think this is a step in the right direction because it makes the pack racing a little more intense and rewarding. And speaking of realism, that brings us to the tuning of pit task times. It might sound like a small change, but this one's actually pretty interesting because it affects the rhythm of your races in subtle but meaningful ways. Before patch 8, some of the pit sequences felt either too fast or too slow, depending on what event you were running. It could throw off your timing or even your strategy, especially in those longer races where pit cycles really matter. After this update, the pit task times have been adjusted to be more realistic, meaning your stops are going to better reflect what would actually happen in a real race. That means you might see small differences in how long your stops take, and those changes can have ripple effects on your entire race strategy. Maybe now, 2-tire stops versus 4-tire stops will feel more balanced, or you might find that fuel-only stops give you a slightly different edge than before. It's subtle, but when you're running close to the front and trying to make strategic calls on the fly, those seconds really matter. Plus, it just makes the whole experience feel smoother. The pit crew animations and timing now line up in a way that feels more natural, and that adds to the immersion when you're in the middle of a long race trying to nail every little detail. One thing I appreciate about this update is that it's not trying to reinvent the wheel. It's a focused patch. Fix the crash, tweak the realism, improve how the cars interact with air, and make the pit flow smoother. It's the kind of patch that tells you the dev team is more concerned with improving the core of the experience instead of distracting players with temporary gimmicks. You can tell they're trying to stabilize the game and make it more consistent across all modes, especially career, which is where most of us spend our time. If you think about it, these updates all tie together nicely. The career mode fix means you can keep progressing without interruptions. The drafting changes make each race feel more dynamic and alive. The pit timing adjustments give you more realism and better flow. It's all connected, and when you look at the update as a whole, it feels like a solid foundation for what's hopefully coming next. Maybe we'll see some performance tuning or AI improvements in a future patch, but for now, this one is about tightening up the experience and fixing the most noticeable pain points. I also want to point out that this update is live on PlayStation and Xbox right now, and performance-wise, it's stable. No new major issues have been reported yet, which is always good news. Sometimes when updates come out, you fix one problem and create another, but this one seems clean so far. People in the community are already reporting smoother career mode progress and better pack behavior, especially on superspeedways like Daytona and Talladega. Those are the tracks where drafting really matters, so if you want to feel the full effect of this patch, those are great places to test it out. Something else worth noting, if you're running custom setups, you might want to revisit your aero balance. Because the drafting effects are stronger now, your car might behave a little differently when you're tucked behind someone for long periods. You might notice a bit more understeer in traffic, or maybe a touch of oversteer when you pull out to pass, depending on your setup. It's not drastic, but enough that it's worth experimenting with. Try lowering your rear spoiler a touch, or adjusting your grille tape, and see how it feels. Small tweaks like that can make your car more stable when the draft pulls you in tighter than before. For casual players who maybe haven't spent a ton of time in the garage tuning setups, this is also a great time to learn. The stronger drafting effect means you'll be able to feel how different setups respond to airflow. If your car suddenly feels light on entry or tight in traffic, that's the drafting system at work. And now that it's more pronounced, you can use it to better understand how aerodynamics influence your driving. It's honestly one of those changes that makes you appreciate the depth of the game once you start noticing all the little details. There's also the bigger picture to consider. NASCAR 25 has had a bit of a rocky start, with players asking for more realism, better AI, smoother online play, the usual stuff that comes up after launch. But patches like this one show steady progress. They're not rushing to overhaul everything at once, they're methodically improving key parts of the game. And that's what leads to a more stable, enjoyable experience in the long run. If they keep up this pace, the game could be in an excellent state by the time the next season update or DLC drops. Another thing to mention is how this patch impacts online racing. While there weren't any direct notes about online stability, the changes to drafting indirectly affect multiplayer too. Stronger drafting means closer pack racing, more opportunities for strategic teamwork, and yeah, probably a few more wild moments when people misjudge the air and make a move too early. It's going to add some excitement to league nights for sure, and if you're someone who races with friends regularly, you might want to coordinate slider settings so everyone's on the same page, especially if you like your races to feel realistic. If I'm being honest, it's refreshing to see this level of fine-tuning. We've all seen games where the devs release big flashy updates that add new cars or cosmetics, but leave major bugs untouched. This one feels different. It's focused on the quality of the racing itself. That's what matters most. It's also a reminder that even small adjustments, like fixing a crash or tweaking pit timing, can dramatically improve the way a racing game feels overall. So yeah, that's patch 8 for NASCAR 25 in a nutshell. It's not a massive overhaul, but it's meaningful. The IRP crash is fixed, drafting feels more alive, pit stops are more believable, and the game just flows better. If you haven't installed it yet, go ahead and do that, and then run a few test laps at your favorite track. I think you'll notice the difference pretty quickly. Before wrapping this up, I just want to say it's worth keeping an eye on how the devs follow up from here. Usually, when a patch like this lands smoothly, it sets up for bigger improvements in the near future. Maybe next time we'll see refinements to AI behavior or some added polish to the presentation side of things. But for now, this is a solid step forward, especially for those of us who love the grind of career mode and want every race to feel smooth, fair, and immersive. Anyway, that's all for this one. If you've already tried the update, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Are you noticing the drafting changes? Does the IRP fix actually solve your career crash issue? Are pit stops feeling more natural now? Let's talk about it, because updates like this are what keep the game moving in the right direction. Thanks for hanging out with me, and if you're enjoying these update breakdowns, make sure to stick around for more. I'll be covering all the new changes and testing how they play out over time, especially as more patches roll in. Until then, good luck out there on the track, and I'll see you in the next one.